Welcome to the Quantum Memoir. I'm Molly, and this is a practice that I've been doing for a few years now, and it's basically a mind map that I use to create a projection for the future. And I use it in all sorts of different ways, for goal setting, for moon charting, just to explore my consciousness, for studies, and for the case that we're going to do today, which would be a Know Thyself page. And so I'm going to give you specific seed words that you can fill into these spheres. And as you're going throughout this conference and you're gaining knowledge and wisdom from the other guides and teachers, you're going to be probably taking notes, or you're going to be having ideas that come up for you. You're going to take those notes, and I'm going to show you how you would filter them into these spheres with these seed words. So before we get started, I just kind of want to give you a visual, a couple examples of a Know Thyself page, because this is a page that I do several times a year, probably 3 to 4 times a year. So this is an example. You have notes, and then you have these specific key ideas that get filtered out of the notes, and then they get put into this thought form. And then here's one that I did more recently. I used black paper and gel ink for this one. So then basically I take the notes, and whatever stood out the most, I ended up putting them in the specific seed words that we're going to go over now. So I just wanted to give you an idea of what it might look like when you're all done. But first we're going to start with this blank slate. So you'll have 2 pages that you're going to be working with, your notes. This is where the ideas of what you're learning, the details that you want to keep in mind, maybe shadow ideas come up for you. This is where these ideas go down. This is the actual thought form. This is called the Fruit of Life pattern. And if you want to look up that, you can go to Google and find out more about the pattern. I call it the Fruit of Life cycle because I use 7 specific inner seed words, as you can see right here, on these inner spheres. And to me, they represent the growth pattern, a waxing and waning of energy. So to me, they create momentum. So this is called the Fruit of Life pattern, or the Fruit of Life cycle. And then for the Know Thyself page, what we're going to do is we're going to fill in specific outer seed words with specific ideas that will help cultivate new concepts with astrology and numerology and chakras, that you can gain more information about yourself to culminate into this thought form that we're going to do. So what you will need to get started: you're going to need either paper or a digital device that you can create your notes and thought form on, and then you're going to need something to write with. I often use pencils and colored pencils, but today I'm going to use a Sharpie just so that you can see what I'm going to be drawing. You're going to actually need this Fruit of Life pattern. If you want, you can use a stencil to draw the spheres. You can use a compass. You can find a cap and just trace the cap if you want to go ahead and get artistic and do it from scratch. But I've made it easy on everybody. I have free templates on my website, quantummemoir.com, that you can print this thought form out on a piece of paper and then just use it with the seed words that I have filled in, and then you're ready to go. You also want to make sure that you're in a pleasant environment, that what you're going to be doing is you're going to be focusing on listening to the thoughts and ideas and imagination, visualizations that come up in your mind while you're creating this thought form. So you don't want to be watching TV or having to take care of other things at the same time. This is a very sacred, special intention that you're going to be doing, because you're going to be taking the time to consume all of this information in the conference. You don't want that to just fade away and go away. So it's really important that the notes, the things that stood out to you, that you really make sure that you integrate in some concrete way. And that's what the Quantum Memoir is about. So then the other resource is the Quantum Memoir website. If you go to quantummemoir.com, you'll see under the Why tab information about knowing thyself. What I've done is I've included a couple videos that kind of prime you with the idea of what know thyself even represents and why you would want to do it. And then down below there, I have a section where I have a step-by-step. You click on the seed word and it'll actually tell you a representation of what the seed word is as I've intuited it. But what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to tell you what the seed words are, hoping that you'll use your intuition to find some type of symbolism or representation to put information in that sphere. But if you get hung up or you don't get that spark of information, then you could come over here to the Quantum Memoir website and then just click on the tab of the seed word, and then it'll give you a little bit about what that might mean, and then hopefully that will inspire something for you. So then there's also the section where it has the outer seed words for this Know Thyself page. So this is a practice that I do a few times a year. That's me, Molly. Now let's get on to our thought form. So you're all set up, your environment is right, it's nice and peaceful. Now you're going to begin your practice. You know, you've consumed all of this information from the other instructors, and you really want to make a big picture, a mind map for yourself to really visualize how you're going to implement these changes in your life. So the center sphere is for purpose. So you could explore any purpose with the quantum memoir. The purpose that we're choosing to explore today is know thyself. So what you would want to do here is write your name, or maybe a symbol that represents you, something that is symbolic of knowing thyself for you, and that will be your purpose. Then this sphere is ground. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through the inner seed words and point those out, and then you use your intuition to figure out a symbolism or representation of what this means to you and how you can incorporate the knowledge and wisdom that you've gained into this thought form. This one is intend. This one is observe, connect, express, and refine. So these are the core 7 seed words of the quantum memoir. To me, this creates a growth pattern, a waxing and waning of energy, kind of a life or death. So this is the cycle of life. To me, this creates momentum both in my mind and in my body. And then all of these interrelate to one another. So now they're going to form a larger picture for you to be able to view, to see, to observe of thyself. And now we're going to go into the outer seed words. These ones are customizable. So if you're using this form for a different practice, like goal setting, you might have different seed words here. The ones I'm going to go over are represented to actually gain more insights about character traits that would help you to know yourself better. So this sphere I call the body sphere. Here is chakra. This sphere, I call it zenith, but I'm going to write intuition just to make it easy for everybody else to understand. This sphere I use for tarot or divination. You could do runes, you could do oracle cards, the I Ching has the dice, you can do different sorts of divination, but I use tarot. So let's go ahead and take a tarot card. So what I might do in this idea of knowing thyself is I would ask a question like, what is unknown to me that I need to reveal? Reveal something that is unknown to me so that I may better know thyself. The star upside down. Don't lose faith now, for inspiration returns with your trust. So I'm going to keep that card aside. I'm going to look into this. So this is how I would actually do it. So I would look into the meaning of the card. I would make notes about it. Then whatever stands out to me the most, I would fill that information into this sphere to make an impression of it in my mind. And then this sphere is numerology. And then this sphere I call astrology. Collectively, these together create an imprint, an impression in your mind. Together, it's going to create one larger symbol that you are going to be able to visualize and imagine when you even step away from your page. So what do you do when you're actually done with your page? You can keep these like I do, and you could keep them in a book of them, or you could burn them when they're done and just release the energy if you don't want to ever actually have to look at it again. But it's kind of neat to go back and see a collection of them over a period of time and see how you've changed and grown. And if you've actually incorporated this projection. So seeing the collection of them is also a larger view of knowing yourself. And then if you really like this practice and you want to do it more often, I do create these hand-bound quantum memoir books. They're kind of like an old alchemy book. It's got a chipboard for the cover, and I hand stitch them, I bind them. And since there's 13 spheres in the Quantum Memoir, I create 13 spreads in here. So you would be able to purchase one of these books and it would be blank. It would have the thought form printed, so you wouldn't have to do that from scratch. It's just printed very lightly. And there's 13 of the spreads in here. So this is one of my old books that I've already done. So you can get one of these on quantummemoir.com. You can also just create these yourself. The downloads to get the template are on the website. You could print those out, and then I have a video on my website how to do this hand binding. So you don't have to necessarily buy these from me unless you really like the idea of me creating it and you want to support that and you want this hemp paper. But you're more than welcome to print the forms out. You can even use a binder and put them together in a binder. You get this Quantum Memoir, the handbound book. I'll include this first issue, the grimoire. It's basically my Quantum Memoir in artwork form. There's 7 of these spreads in here. The value of this is that your eyes are going to be drawn to key aspects. And so it's going to be sort of like a mini meditation where when you look at the images, if something stands out, you're probably going to get an impression of it in your mind. You're going to have a thought or imagination that comes up, and then it'll inform you of something about yourself. So they're meant to be thought-provoking. And then in between one of the spreads, each one of the spreads that I've included, there's a spread for you to actually do your artwork on. So as you go throughout this conference and you gain the information and insights from the other instructors, you'll be able to take notes from them. And then whatever the key aspects that stood out to know thyself, you'll put it into your thought form over here. So I hope that this information helps you really create a big picture and able to integrate what it is that you learn at this conference. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and continue to do a little bit of study, research about knowing thyself, not specifically to myself, but information that might be useful to you, so that you can, after you're done watching this video, you'll be able to go to quantummemoir.com and look at the note page that I've created and find any links to the citations that might be interesting to you. Now I'm going to explore the star. Okay, so once you have all of your notes done, you can take this and you'll filter it into the thought form. Previously, I just wrote the seed words down here so that you could see what they are. But what I did is I went ahead and created a blank template for me so that I can take this information and fill it into the thought form, so you can actually kind of see the process of how this translates. We know that our purpose is to know thyself. As I had previously suggested, you could write your name down here or a symbol. What I'm going to do, instead of writing my name, I'm just going to write know thyself. And I often do it with this little code, which is a small K inside of brackets, because it's really about now. Knowing yourself is about right now. I'm not the same person that I was yesterday or last month or last year, and certainly not a decade ago. So that's the purpose, to know thyself. For ground, what I'm going to do is I'm just kind of look over here, or if any ideas come up for me as I approach the seed word, then I'm going to put them in here. What's drawing my attention is this idea that I have with the little plants that I've drawn, which is that we're cultivating. It's garden. We're a gardener of thy soul, or cultivate what is already inside thyself. So what I'm feeling like is I'm thinking that I'm going to actually put an affirmation here. And I'm going to say, because I like this idea that I'm the gardener of my soul. And I heard that from one of the videos in that citation list that I mentioned previously. So my soul needs me to cultivate information in my experience and to refine things, to observe the quality and of my life and appreciate the things that are in it. So my soul needs me to garden my life experience. So that is my ground. This is something that I can actually tangibly do on a daily basis. Is just getting my bare feet out on the ground. I'm seeing that in my mind, that this is a great way for me to ground. So I'm going to draw some little feet marks right there, just to kind of symbolize walking outside, and this will be my ground. So what I could do is I could actually go outside later and stand barefoot on the ground and think about, contemplate the fact that I am the gardener of this whole vast life that I'm living. So intend. If you're the gardener of your soul, you're always tending to it, you're always cultivating it. And something that I wrote down early on when I did this page, I had done it in pencil, was always learning. I recognize that I'm always learning, especially if I'm just standing out there barefoot, watching nature. I'm observing how it interacts with with itself and each other. And then I gain perspective about my own life. And so I'm always learning because I'm always observing and trying to be aware of the moment that I'm in. So for my intention, I'm thinking another affirmation. I am always learning. If I recognize this intention, then this, I believe, might sort of remove the ego, which thinks that it does know something. And if you know something, then that kind of implies that it might not be able to change unless that's part of your knowing. So I know that I'm always learning, that I don't know everything, and I'm open to gaining new information about the things that I might even already think that I know. And I like writing all with both L's, because this really makes me think of unity. So I make all of these little adjustments to my spelling and things like that, just so that they stand out different. Because this is really an artistic piece for me. This isn't going to the English teacher to be graded in any way. This is for my perception, so that I create a warm, fuzzy feeling in my heart, and I can see the value of where I'm going with it. All right, so then that makes me think of optimism. And in optimism, I used orange. I used the orange gel marker. And these don't have to be affirmations, but just kind of what's coming up for me right now is that I'm not always optimistic. I'm definitely pessimistic sometimes. That shadow or the fears come out. And the star is saying, to move away. Like if you deal with your past and you go deep within, then you're going to move away from pessimism and move towards optimism. And optimism isn't like an end-all answer to everything either, but it's certainly going to head you into a direction that will bring a higher vibration or wealth, health into your life. So I'm going to say that optimistic, this is the sacral chakra. I'm being creative with my optimism, and that's kind of how I know thyself, is that I'm the artist of my life. I get to cultivate it in any way that feels it wants to come forward for me. So I'm going to put another affirmation here. So that's my sacral chakra. So I really just kind of think that this thought form, I'm bringing in creative energy. I'm bringing in wellness to my sacral chakra. So then what comes forward for me is this idea of persona, that you have this philosophy of you based on all of these past experiences of the family that you were born into, the geographic area that you lived in, the language that you learned shaped your persona. So what I'm coming up with my intuition is this assumed character, Molly, that I've grown into being. My intuition is telling me that I should love my persona, that because personas are built based on our life experiences, why would you live in a persona that isn't enjoyable? So I love my persona. I'm going to put, I say persona, but really I have different personas depending on what I'm doing. Like I noticed that as I make YouTube videos, the voice that I use when I'm giving instruction or talking is different than the voice that I would use talking to a friend on the phone. I do have these different personas. So I love them all, even the ones that are in the process of healing. So I love my personas. So let's just take a moment and let's just kind of cruise our eyes over here again and see if anything comes out, if it stands out, and then you know these seed words, so there should be some sort of representation between them. So if I'm talking about my personas and loving my past personas, if I think of connect, it's going to be forgiving or connecting to those past versions of me that are like considered the skeletons in the closet. And probably what I would do is I would draw a skeleton here if I had my pencils and the time to do that. Right now I'm just giving ideas for you to use, but what you could connect to in this know thyself are your past selves, and to forgive those aspects of yourself. So I'm going to put forgive. I'm going to connect to my past self in this idea of this thought form, but I'm going to do that in a way that I'm forgiving those things that I've said or done that I'm not actually in love with. That way I can be in love with all of me, even the shadow aspect of me. I don't have to keep doing it, but I can still love it. So we're thinking about a quote. I have this quote from Mark Twain over here. Don't let schooling interfere with your education. So if we think about learning about life and allowing those teachings to change as we change, then if we hold on to the things that we were taught, assuming that they were right, we might not be able to learn the actual truth because we're holding to the fast of what we actually learned, which could not be true or may not be true. So my observation is this idea of school, that the things that I learned in school are not necessarily the things that I know to be true right now in my life. And then even, in 5 years, 10 years, there might be new science out that changes that even again. So my observation is this Mark Twain quote. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this is prompting up a thought of a quote that my husband and I use, which is learn through creating your own experience. This is my observation of who I am, is that I'm always learning because I'm always creating new experiences for myself so that I can learn new things. All right, so learn via creating your own experience. This is my observation about who I am today. So since we're up here by the tarot sphere, we could go ahead and take a look at the star. So for us, the star was in the reversed position, and I went through crystal clear reflections and took notes on what stood out to me about the star and about knowing thyself. And that's why this whole idea of the past has come up in this conversation, in this thought form. So that's how the divination works. It brings something, I might not have necessarily went towards the past as a theme when I was going to explore know thyself, but because it came up here, I feel like it's something that I can address and definitely learn from. If we use this idea of the star, what I'm thinking of is that the star illuminates darkness. Even when it's the time of the dark moon or the new moon, and we don't have the reflection of the sun on the moon, the sky is still illuminated because of the stars. So I'm going to put, I illuminate the darkness. Now let's just kind of look at the page again, see what might come forward. We have our body sphere, this is like the physical aspect of us. And if we are continuing to look at the star, the guidance that the star is suggesting is that we should be meditating to really go within, go deep within. So meditation is really what I need to focus on my body for this knowing thyself. This is kind of like something that I can improve upon or refine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put meditate, and I see it in my mind really quickly as me. That really stood out when I thought about writing it. So meditate. And then if I think about Okay, so meditate. I'm gonna have to take this body to do some sort of meditation. Gotta engage it. So what type of meditations would I do? I really like this idea of walking. You know, I live in the woods, so I have these little paths carved out. So I will meditate by walking. I also meditate by doing this art. The quantum MeMoir is a form of meditation for me. And then really, I like the Zen meditation. This is where I really need to probably work on, because it's very difficult to do in my impression or at my current experience. So I really want to sit down with just being still with no sounds and really see why it's so difficult. Explore that. So this body is asking me to do Zen meditations. And then guided. I really like guided meditations. We listen to guided meditations at night before bed every night. So this really feels like self-love here. This is what I'm giving to my body, is self-love. And then I kind of see some heart chakra energy coming forward. So maybe this is a combination between the heart chakra and the sacral chakra that I'm kind of imbuing in here. Well, look, there's a red one too. So there, a lot of love is going into this page, which would make sense because I'm doing it about myself. So you really want to feel love for yourself if you want to have any sort of hope or joy in your life. So now refinement is coming forward in my thoughts. It's just like a spark of an idea that this is what stood out. So you can see that I'm just jumping around. There's no specific direction that you have to go when you're doing it. So for refine, I see attached to optimism. You know, you have this optimism on this side. Refine, the answer is within me. So via my results, so the results that I have, I can see what I think about myself based on the results that I'm currently getting. If I don't like those results, then I'm gonna have to change my actions or my thoughts so that I start creating different results. So my refinement is to recognize that the answers are already within me. They're already in my life experience. If I just take the time to observe what I'm getting, then I will have a better perspective of where I want to go. Maybe I want to keep going the direction I'm going, but likely there's probably improvements that I could make for my path that I'm taking. So I'm going to put the answers. So then if we're really just sticking with the idea of me, that like what I do know about me is this expression that I love asking questions. So we have some questions that the tarot had provided us from reading Crystal Clear Reflections. We could take these questions and on a separate note page and answer those questions. 1, 2, and 3. So you could really express yourself by asking questions. And even if you don't know the answers to them, that's okay. Likely your mind, because you've primed the idea of the questions, will start to see the answers in your daily life going forward. Or they might lead to more questions. So ask questions. And then there's some questions that we could ask ourselves. So then that leaves these two categories right here, numerology and astrology. And what I like about these is because whether you believe in whether they are true or not, the information that's provided by looking into these codes are going to be so valuable to understanding the human psyche. So I'm just going to give you, because I'm not going to actually go through and do mine, I'm just going to give you an idea or suggestion what to look up. So look up your soul urge number. And I went ahead and I found a website that would provide that number to you. So you can just put in your information and then it'll give you your soul urge number, and then it'll give you the code or the human expression of what that number means. And so if you go to the citation list, you'll find the link to that. Or you could just go to Google and type your soul urge number. So then astrology, just to give you an idea of how you could use this astrology sphere, you could look up your sun sign. Since we're talking about the persona, about your identity, about knowing yourself, the self that you experience life as, you know, in encounters with other people or your environment, the sun sign would be a really important sign to look up. I am choosing this word because the article I looked up when putting together the notes mentioned your destiny. So if you really want to like find out what your destiny is, I see a star going right here. Then look up your sun sign, take notes on it, and then put whatever stands out to you as the most important aspect into this sphere right here. And then usually what I always do is I sign the page when I'm done as just kind of like a seal, a stamp of approval. So this is not just specifically about me. It's more about a soul idea that all of us probably could look through these spheres and relate to this information in some way, since I didn't actually do things that were specific, truly specific to me. So instead of signing my actual name, I'm going to put quantum me. So this is my soul, quantum me. So there you are. That is the quantum memoir, using it as a know thyself page, taking the notes and really just putting it into a visual thought form. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And again, I just want to thank you for taking the time to watch this and exploring your shadow side and bringing yourself into the light.